Alright, what I want to do is load episode. Is there a new game plus? I don't know. So, oh, you can see how many things you've collected. So I missed 2 Ninsist memories there. I missed 1 there. I missed 3 there. So I missed a lot of these bonus things. Wow, I had like 0 out of 10 Scaramex. Yeah, so I missed a lot of loot along the way. I don't know what happens if I reload the unlocked extras. Ooh, let's do this first. Wow, artworks. Let's do this first. So we can go back and play the chapters. I don't know if it actually allows you to collect everything by the end of it. Alright, let's go through the whole thing. This is the city, Neo-Paris. We never saw this scene, really. I think this is meant to be the slum, and there's a massive wall to the right there. I think it's supposed to be like we're walled off from the richer parts of the city, but we never really saw this in the game, did we? We saw similar things, not quite like this. Oh, we can't just go to the next one. Alright, dudes. These are the slum dudes. A lot of leather, isn't there? There's a lot of leather clothing. Alright, interesting fashion. Was this ever a thing? This was never really a thing. I remember in the game, a lot of the environments in the game was very claustrophobic. Like, it was very tight, or maybe the camera angles were not good. But you see this vista, like we're in the water, I think, and we're on a boat, and we're seeing the city laid out before us. We didn't get very many vistas in the game, and the few times we got vistas, I did try to look at them, and they were pretty good. But for example, we never saw this view in the game, where you just kind of saw this industrial stuff in front, and the slums in front, and then the city at the back. We didn't see very many of this sort of vista in the game. And this, the flooding, we kind of saw this in the game, but in the game it was a lot smaller, you remember? Like, this seems a lot bigger, this seems more like a real city, whereas in the game everything was a lot tighter and a lot more claustrophobic, as I said. So, I don't know, this looks more impressive than the actual game, I feel like. Alright, it's just the warehouse, I don't think this is all that interesting. So they had pretty good artists, I think. And they imagined this world, which is interesting. So we saw more of this. So the game that we actually went through is more like this, more claustrophobic, although there's more dirt here. There wasn't quite as much dirt in the actual game, and the people here are doing reasonable things, whereas in the game all the people were either messed up or dead or just not there. So this looks like an actual city street, although there's not enough shops. But the people like make sense here, whereas when you're in the game, it's like a lot of empty corridors and streets with no people in them, and they were really weird because of that. This is cool though. What is that? Oh, that's amazing. We never saw this in the game, I don't think, or if we did, I didn't see the arch. Alright, so there's more of the slums. More slums. Oh, this is the first view. When we got out of the tunnels, this is the first thing we saw, wasn't it? And again, the thing in the distance wasn't like that. Like, the stuff in front was the same as what we saw in the game, pretty much. But the vista in the distance was not the same. Like, the distance is a lot bigger here than it was in the game. I think they had trouble making big backgrounds, which I don't blame them for that. They're using the Unreal Engine, if you're wondering. And it's not easy in a video game to make big backgrounds because you have to kind of make a lot of models, you know, in the distance. But nothing ever felt as big as what we see here in this concept art, which is a bit of a shame. This is pretty much what we saw in the game. But you see the bridge there, there's a column holding up. Whereas in the game, the scaffolding didn't have columns holding them up, which was weird. So this is like a canal, and there's boats in the canal, and there's people everywhere. There's more stuff. There's more stuff in this picture than there ever was in the game. This looks like a real market. Whereas in the game, it looked like, you know, a video game representation of a market. Yeah, unfortunately the game never really managed to match the artwork. I don't think we ever saw this in the game. Oh, we did, but we didn't see it from this angle. We saw the flooded version after we flooded the place, and we went into this is the headquarters. All right, we did see this, but not like this. And we saw it from above. So we went into the balcony up there, and then down here the plaza was flooded when we got here. Fascinating. Like the mix between the old architecture and the new architecture. You can see how the balcony and the tower behind this has just kind of planted itself on top of the old building here. This is really cool. Robots. There were a lot of robots in the game. Again, the weird economy where somehow there's all these robots willing to do all the menial jobs, and yet there's still poor people in the game, which doesn't make any sense. The Good Soup Restaurant, is that really what it says? Oh, well, that's interesting, but not that interesting. The Eiffel Tower. We never got this close to the Eiffel Tower, did we? Did I ever come to this particular street? I don't remember though. I don't remember the scene in the game. I don't think we ever got this close to the Eiffel Tower. This was... Where was this? Oh, this is the Xmas, Kid Xmas versus Nilin. The fight, which was interesting. Well, I think we saw this. This is like an old... Look at all these old buildings. This is pretty awesome. Historic streets. And the paving on the ground! You see the pattern of that paving? The fans? Or the scallops? I don't know if you can see it. I don't think we ever saw that in the game neither. I love that paving. Robots. Not that remarkable. Although you see the advertisements, it's exactly the same as the advertisements in the game. This concept art is amazing though. I mean, look at the detail in this art. They had some amazing artists working on this game. I wonder how they did this. Maybe they just took a photo of a street and just kind of modified it. I don't know. That's possible, but still, there's a lot of work going into these things. I think they did. Look at the arrangement of the chairs at the bottom left there. I think this might be a photo of a street scene that's been modified. Still, pretty cool. Stuff like this. Okay, that's alright. This is... Oh, is this one of the main enemies? So the helmet closes up like that, right? Interesting. Interesting. Okay, what else do we have? We never saw that. There's a massive dam and the... Wait a minute. So there's a massive dam and the slum is on the bottom of the dam. That's not really how it is in the game, is it? In the game, the slum is inside the dam with the water. Fascinating though. This is a fascinating picture. I mean, real slums would be like this. You know, like they'll be in dangerous places because nobody else wants to live there, and so all the poor people get stuck with the bad locations. What an amazing picture that is. A guy selling vegetables. But where would the vegetables come from? Where would he be growing vegetables? Wow, amazing. So this is like a sewer. Oh, this is like the underneath the flooding. So after the water is removed, I guess. So you see like at the bottom left there, there's like buildings and cars, but it looks like they've been underwater for some time. We never saw this in the game. This is amazing. So whatever you thought was amazing in the game, they had even bigger ideas in their concept art. Look at this! The city was massive when they first imagined it, and it's much, much smaller in the game. The scope of it is massive. Look at these images. Alright, here's the zone. Pretty cool. Look at that. What a cool guy. I don't think they've ever... I need to go back and read some of this stuff. And I haven't found all the encyclopedia entries neither, so I'm sorry if you're interested. Maybe you should just buy the game and play it yourself. I actually want to see all the encyclopedia entries myself. But I don't know if I can be bothered to go back and find them. Alright, you've seen this before. Look at the trays of slop being sold. It's funny. They sell maggots and fried rats and all that. So this is... Alright, you can see, like, you see the column in the middle. Like, the top half of the column is clean and the bottom half is dirty. So this is like where the water level was, right? Right in the middle of the column is where the water used to be. Great. And there's people eating next to these shops? That actually makes sense? None of the people we found in the game were interesting like this, unfortunately. Ew. Alright, well there's like a ruined subway. And the subway train that was underwater and then we went on and then subway train moved. How on earth would a subway train that was submerged in water for decades, how would that move afterwards? This, like, the story, like, I mean, for all the interesting things that was in the story, there's some parts of this game just doesn't make any sense at all. Like, all of a sudden the train just moves after not moving for several decades? Even if it wasn't underwater, if I was mistaken about the underwater bit, even if the train was just sitting there for 3 decades, it wouldn't move afterwards without a lot of repair. It doesn't work like that. Trains don't... You don't just leave a machine in a dirty place with a lot of leapers and expect it to work afterwards. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, so like some parts of this game is just completely... Like, it just blows my mind how they could think that would make any sense at all. And yet there are some other parts that are so incredibly amazing and interesting. More slums, more things that we didn't actually see in the game. Or maybe we did, just not from this angle. Fallen's memory? Alright, that's pretty cool. That's exactly how it was in the game, amazing. They just did it. The Seraphim, the flying robot that just sits in a corner and shoots at you like a jerk. I don't remember seeing this in the game, although we must have. A lot of solar panels. We never saw this. Look at those plants. Or maybe we did see this. Maybe I just... But look at the plants. This is amazing. Look at the floor tiles. What great environment design. This is really amazing environment design. Great spatial, or maybe not spatial design, I don't know if the arrangement of spaces make any sense. But the architectural styles, amazing. Oh, this is after the place is flooded, right? And that's Nillan down there. There's water everywhere, gross. Interesting. And this is the flying robots. Look at all the prototypes for this thing. Look, they decided on the jet one in the end, but they had rotors at some point. Look at the prototypes on the right there. That's great. I love this stuff. That's a person. Alright, that's Fallen. Was it Fallen? Yeah, it was. We remixed his memories and made him kill his wife. Great. These are slum dwellers sifting through the rubbish, I think. Again, people doing meaningful things, which we didn't see in the game. Not too much to see, everything's just broken and dirty and ugly. Oh, this is fascinating. This is like an old district with not much new architecture inserted into it. I mean, look at those shop fronts at the bottom. So there's new windows, and maybe there's a new window in the middle of that building there. And on the top left, you can see there's like a penthouse built on top of the rooftop there. You see that? So there's like a few futuristic insertions into the architecture, but for the most part, it's historic architecture. Like, this is really interesting urban design, right? Subway station, which we never saw. I don't think we ever. Oh, is it subway, or maybe it's a? No, this is more like a shopping center. I don't understand why there's a massive escalators and these tiny doors. I don't know what this is, and I don't remember seeing this in the game neither. No idea what this is. Scylla's memory scanning. Alright, well, not much to see here. This was Scylla's office with the bits of broken cars encased in glass. Again, back to the story. Like, Edge talked about how Scylla kept held on to her memories and refused to let her husband, refused to let Charles change her memories to make her feel better. And yet in the game, she turned out into this bitter, angry boss who didn't let any of her workers go home in a disaster. Like, she turned out to be a mean person because of the bitterness that she had. So it's like, is the story about not changing people's memories, or is it about how if you don't resolve your trauma, then you become a bitter person? And then Nilin changes her memories and she becomes a better person. But is the game about not messing with people's memories, or is it about messing with people's memories? Like, there's this really confused morality where sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and there's no. And of course, I mean, if you just say, well, you know, if you do it right, then it's okay. If you abuse your powers, then it's wrong. Well, maybe that makes sense, but the story doesn't really come to any meaningful conclusions about it, because there's like it doesn't say one way or the other, and it doesn't really. There's no resolution. I guess it's okay in the sense that, well, it's just something that the player or the audience has to decide about the morality, but it doesn't quite match up with how the story is told. I don't know. There's a lot of confusion. I mean, if you want to present a dilemma, I think there's a way to present it without confusion. You kind of say, you know, there are options. Maybe in like BioShock, there are also ideologies, and it kind of presents the ideologies in a way that makes sense, and it's not confused. Even though there's no final answer, like, is Andrew Ryan right? And, you know, Frank Fontaine is he a good? I mean, he's a bad person, but did he follow Ryan's ideology better than Ryan did? So I mean, there's these kind of weird conflicts, and there's no clear answer as to whether Ryan was right or wrong in what he did. but at least the concept were presented to you and the ideas were presented to you in a clear way. Whereas here, there's the same, ambiguity about what to do, but it's also kind of confusing as to how they tell it. Anyway, let me just go back to the artwork. Alright, a corridor. Not that important. More corridors. Not that important. Oh, rain. Oh, this is the prison. We never saw this in the game, did we? We never saw the outside of the prison in the game. We saw it was in the encyclopedia. They used it there. I don't know how amazing this is. The angles are supposed to be threatening. Like if everything's horizontal and vertical, then everything is stable. But if everything's kind of diagonal, then it feels like everything is, on the verge of falling down on you or things like that. So diagonals generally make people feel uncomfortable because it's like you're not straight, you're not sitting down. Like if you're square, then you're just sitting down, right? Whereas if you're diagonal, it's like you're leaning over, and so it's more threatening. If that makes sense. So the diagonals here is supposed to make the building look more threatening. Okay, a parkour puzzle. There's a lot of parkour in the game, and sometimes there's no explanation as to why we don't just walk on the streets. This is the attack helicopter, the aircraft. Interesting design. Not entirely original though. I mean, I guess a lot of hover aircraft look like this in a lot of different games, like Command and Conquer, like Deus Ex Human Revolution, and like a lot of helicopters look kind of like this. Maybe there's no other way to make helicopters. I don't know. This is cool. Did we ever see this? We kind of saw this, but not from this angle. I remember this. We could walk in the corridor and look out, but we couldn't look in. So you see like these curves in this angle here. We didn't see this room from this angle, and this angle really is the more interesting angle, I think, to see this room. All right, there's a lot of art here. This is amazing. That's not that amazing. Not that interesting. This is inside the prison, right? And a door and a balcony. Not that interesting. Wow. This is a real place. This must be a real place that they've painted on top of. Isn't this Paris? And then they just kind of painted over it to make it look futuristic. I think this is. Awesome. I don't remember seeing this in the game. The curved wood is interesting. That curved wood is quite difficult to do. Although you can laminate timber into curves, it's not easy to make wood curve like that. What an interesting interior. I don't think we ever saw this in the game though. That's the Nephilim, one of the robots. Interesting. A street scene. Didn't we see this already, or was it like a before and after? I think it was like a before and then after we released the floods and it's all raining and everything and dark. So it's like an arcade with shops. The Doctor, Sebastian Quaid. What a freak. What? Quaid? Who? Why? How can anyone think that's a good idea? Like, it's not something that you... Well, I guess Hitler was that crazy. But there's not that many people in history, not that many real people who would be that crazy, right? Why would he think making leapers Or was he trying to fix the leapers? He was trying to isolate the mutation that turned people into leapers or something. But he was just doing everything wrong. He was just kind of messing people up and wiping their brains and then implanting his own memories into them. Like, who? He was literally insane. The thing is, when you're literally insane, that tends to get in the way of you being a scientist. Just like Hitler being insane kind of got in the way of him being a dictator, because in the end he kind of underestimated the Russians and the British, and he overestimated his own German troops. And so when he invaded Russia, like, he kind of just threw them into battle, and then they lost Stalingrad and all that. So like Hitler's weird racism made him overestimate his own soldiers and underestimate the enemy, and so his madness got in the way of him winning the war, because he would misjudge the situation because he was insane. And likewise, when you're a mad scientist, the madness gets in the way of the science, because science, like, you have to get the science right in order for it to work. You can't just, you just hit rocks together and then things work. In order to make complicated things work, you have to really understand them. And if you're crazy, then you're not understanding the things for what they are. And how can you make science work when you're insane? So it's not something. It's something that happens a lot in fiction. It's not something that happens a lot in real life. Like, there's no real life mad scientist, because if you're mad, you can't do science. You have to be kind of really clear-headed and rational in order to do science, because things don't work if you're crazy. If you know what I mean? So this like, what Quaid was doing doesn't make any sense at all, and it's not something that's believable if you understand how science works. Alright, so this is like the medical equipment. The perspective is really strange in this image. The perspective is really strange in this image, like we're tilting down somehow. Alright, a corridor, it's not that amazing. Did we see these? These are like the criminals. Well, I mean, the quote-unquote criminals. Who knows if they were actually real criminals? But their brains were being wiped in the prison, right? So a man and a woman. I don't remember that particular painting on the left. I think this is one of the apartments that we ran through. Like, we randomly ran through a lot of apartments along the way. Fascinating. I don't think we ever saw this in the game. Suburb perimeter. Suburb parameter. Suburb parmentier. What is that word? P-A-R-M-E-N-T. Parmentier? So this is interesting. So again, we have the historic buildings on the right? And then we have these futuristic things on the left and in the middle, and there's like bridges across, and there's like a futuristic thing on the bottom right, but then the street or the canal is historic, and then the sloping bits on the left is also futuristic. So this kind of mix between the historic buildings and the futuristic parts. That's really amazing. Really interesting architecture. I don't know what that is. Some kind of server room? A corridor? Not too interesting. All the curves. Curves are complicated. Like, if you have a table, how do you fit that into a curve? You can't, right? You need a square room to fit a square table in. But curves are futuristic. Your bath is ready. Thanks, house. Thanks for readying my bath. The architects talk about this sort of stuff. Imagine like a house that, like, you can just kind of tell your house to make a bath for you. I don't know if it's worth the technology though, because you could just easily make your own bath, and it's not, I mean, making a bath is not that complicated. So having a robot make your bath seems like a waste of the robot. So the robot needs to be really, really cheap in order for that to be economically plausible. You know, like, if you have a robot, I don't know, clean your laundry for you. We have washing machines. Like, washing machines make sense because otherwise you spend hours and hours washing clothes, right? So the washing machine is kind of like a robot that washes your machine, or washes your clothing, and that's economically viable because the cost of the machine is worth the hours that you would spend every single day washing your clothes. Whereas, making a bath, having a robot make your bath might not be economically viable. Like a dishwasher might be economically viable, not quite as good as the washing machine. But if a dishwasher saves you like a half an hour a day, then maybe that's worth your money, right? I mean, however much your half an hour is worth times however long the washing machine lasts, that's the value of the washing machine, and so on and so forth. Maybe if you have like a lot of dishes, if you have a big family and you have a lot of dishes, maybe then it makes sense. So there's these economic arguments, and I don't think your house making your bath really fits the economic argument, because how do you make a bath? You just turn the taps on and you turn your taps off. Like, it's not really difficult to make a bath, right? Alright, we've seen this before. Not that interesting, but there's a massive cube outside, that's kind of cool, but the interior is just an empty room. The window frame has vague Art Nouveau influences, which is cool, I like that. What is this? Mundane memories, complex memories, protected or repressed memories, dark memories, key memories, memory storage units. We never saw this in the game. We never actually saw memory storage units in the game, except at the very end in the boss fight, where he just gave us a cube and said, break the cube! But aside from that, we didn't really see these things. Or maybe we did and we never understood the significance of them. But apparently they're cubes. They're not actual storage devices, they're just boxes. You put your memory in a box, and you put a box in a shelf, and that's your memory. Alright, cool. Does that statue have her boob out? It does, like her boob is hanging out of her toga on the left there. That's cool though, like the projection of a mountain onto a wall in your house. And again, you see the historic, like the old style chandelier and the door frames. You see the carvings on the door frames, and juxtapose that with the modern furniture and the projection on the wall. So this kind of mix between an old building with new technology, very interesting. And of course, the old statue on the left there with her boob hanging out. That's kind of cool too. Alright, corridors. I don't know, corridors. Fashionable people. Surprisingly, the men are still wearing suits or like business attire. The fashion sense has not improved over the decades. Like the men are still wearing pretty much the same thing. That's so disappointing. Is he still wearing? He's still wearing a tie too, I think. Men's fashion really needs to kind of liven up a little bit. Men's fashion is so boring. There's a broken car inside the house, or is that like a broken robot inside the house? This must be and there's a giant robot arm holding a light. It seems a really elaborate way to hold the light up, but there's a robot arm doing it. So this would be a house of a roboticist, somebody who makes robots, I guess, because there's robot parts everywhere. We never saw this in the game. Maybe we were supposed to do something with a robot. Maybe that was part of the original plan. That would be cool though, if we could, like, actually use robots and have robots on our side and help us fight and all that. There's a lot of robots in the game, and we never really did anything with them except kill a few of them. Would be cool to have robots. Saint Michel, what is that? A boat station? A train station? Some kind of station? A bus stop? It's a bus stop, isn't it? Alright, well that's a pretty futuristic bus stop. Oh, this is the end of the game. There were more cubes in the artwork. And the scale! Look at the scale of this thing! It was much bigger than the concept art! Look at the bottom right there, there's Nilin. That's how big she was. This thing is massive! The thing in the game is about a quarter of the size of the thing in the concept art. Why did they do that? Maybe it was just too big. Maybe it was just too big and it took you too long to run through the room. Like sometimes architects would design these massive buildings and then people would have to like spend 5 minutes getting from one side of the building to the other. Maybe that was the problem, it was just kind of too big to run through. But this is massive. Look at the size of this concept art compared to what we had in the game. And there's stairs and there's corridors going off the stairs. It wasn't anywhere near this complex in the game. The Nike of Samothrace, the statue is still there though. And this is the same size, this is the same scale as before. Check this out. Wait a minute, the thing in the game was even more complex than this, because there was the robot statues, and there was more details in the walls too. Right? The actual room in the game was even bigger than, I mean, even more complex than this. That's Dad, who is pretty much the same size as Nilin. His clothing is pretty ordinary. That's a really fancy vest. Alright, fascinating, but again, like men's fashion is pretty boring. Yeah, like what's this? Like this is the server. This is H30, the and like Edge. This is Edge, right? What are those goopy bits on the computers? I don't understand what they are. Is it representative of the fact that he was turning into an organic thing that could think? And another thing that doesn't make sense in the story, like how does a collection of memories become self-aware? It wasn't even a computer that processed memories, right? It was just a storage unit. It's like your hard drive becoming self-aware. I mean, if your CPU becomes self-aware, that kind of makes sense. But your hard drive becoming self-aware, like it's the storage. Well, that doesn't make any sense. As far as you know, it didn't actually process the memories. It just stored the memories, right? You see what I mean? It's like a filing cabinet becoming self-aware. I don't know. The story is pretty wacky. This is interesting. Again, we have the architecture, the old and the new. In this case, the new stuff is completely encased the historic stuff. So you can see a little bit of the old windows and balconies, right? But then a lot of it is just this new glass and white plastic sort of thing going on, and at the top is just all curves and everything, right? Pretty cool. Eiffel Tower in the distance. We never saw this scene in the game. Again, like we never actually got up and saw the whole city very often, which was a bit of a shame. Storage units, you see robots working besides people. We never saw this in the game neither. Fascinating though. Just a big computer. Alright, is that all the art? That's all the artwork. 3D models? I don't think we did see these. I mean, these are kinda interesting, but don't think we need to see these. No, I mean, we've seen them in the game, right? Unless there's a really interesting one. Oh, we never saw the concept art for the Madame. Remember how Madame had the really weird outfit? And we don't have her here neither, do we? Nope, we don't have her here neither, or we didn't unlock it. Alright, so that's that. Do I want to read? Maybe let's not read. I kind of want to read the encyclopedia, but it's just a lot of reading. Alright, let's end it here. and I might go back and try and find all the secrets. I don't know if I care too much. Alright, I've said pretty much everything I have to say about this game. I wish it was better. It deserves to be better, I think. I mean, the artwork and the architecture and the design of it deserves to be in a better game, but the combat is wacky. The story is a bit muddled. I still think it's underrated. I think, given everything, it's still underrated. It's worth more than what the Metacritic score says it is. Anyway, I'll see you guys in future playthroughs, and I'm really glad I played this game, though. I am, because it's been really interesting, and the artwork is great. I'm glad I played it. But it's not a great game. I'll see you guys.